I did things really backwards. Most people go to church to find Jesus. Jesus came to me, and then I found church. So I've kind of come at this a little backwards, I guess, from a lot of folks. When I was a little kid, I told the story that this tall hippie guy would show up about the time something bad was going to happen, and would say, come on, let's go play. Hey, show me this. Hey, let's go outside. Let's go by this tree. And I'd go with him. And then there would be an explosion of something that happened inside the house where I just was. And so this tall hippie guy would just show up and save my bacon. And when I got moved from one state to another, went to live with my grandparents, I was really surprised, and I was really shocked, and I was really happy that this tall hippie guy came with me and hung out with me at my grandparents' house too. And I was about, probably 5, 6 years old, something like that. And one day, this tall hippie guy and I were playing, and I said, man, it's just not fair that you come to my house all the time. I'm a better friend than that. Where's your house? I want to go over there. And so I saw this picture in my head of one of these big white houses with an X on the top of it. And so I was about 5, and I got myself dressed in my finest suit, and I walked down to my living room, and my grandpa said, what are you doing? So I'm going to church. He says, I don't go to church. I said, man, you don't have to. I'm going. He said, which one are you going to? I said, I don't know, probably one of those white ones with the X on the top of it. And he said, okay, well, have fun. Luckily, I live in a small town, about 5,000 people, so a little 5-year-old kid walking the streets trying to find a church wasn't a spooky thing. And I walked into this church, and I went to the upstairs part where they had all the pews and all the people, and I got really confused really quickly because the guy up at the front was yelling at all these people. And I looked around, I didn't see my hippie guy friend. I just didn't see him there, and I didn't feel good. It didn't make me feel happy the way that I felt when my hippie friend showed up. So I thought, wow, I must have been mistaken. Maybe he doesn't live here. So something urged me to go downstairs. I went down to the basement, and as I did, I looked up on the wall, and they had a picture hanging of my hippie friend. And I thought, isn't that odd that they keep you in the basement and then be upstairs getting yelled at? That just seems a little backwards, but I'm new here. I'm 5. What do I know? And right next to his picture, over on this side, was juice and cookies and coffees and mints. And I went, what's wrong with those folks? If they're up there getting yelled at when you're down here and you brought snacks. And so I pulled up a chair, pointed at the wall, pointed at the picture, looked at him, asked if I could have a cookie, and we started to communicate, we started to talk. And next thing I knew, he was right there standing next to me, and we were playing. And it wasn't all that long later that the people upstairs were done getting yelled at, and they came downstairs where he was, and everybody was smiling and having a great time and really enjoying themselves and connecting with each other and having the cookie and the tea and the coffee, and you could just see this version of this tall hippie guy inside of every one of these people as they were down there. And I thought, wow, they must have earned their way down. They must have paid the price upstairs in order to gain admission down here. And although it didn't make any sense to me, it was only later through church and through confirmation classes and all this sort of thing that I got to know that there was this guy in the Bible named Jesus, and the story of who he was and how he was and all these things. Because I knew him first as a person. I knew him first just like meeting you or hanging out with you. It was just, hey, how you been? I'm this, I'm that. Oh, come on, let's go play, let's go do this. So my journey was a little different than most. And when we think about Christ, last week we had a talk on Christianity, and I was raised Christian. I think Christianity is great, but it was the rules aspect of the judge and the prosecuting attorney and all these things. I'm like, wow, that doesn't remind me at all of this tall hippie guy. But at the time I was taught, in order to have this, in order to have a relationship with Christ, you have to succumb to the rules that are Christianity. Well, there was a guy, maybe you've heard of Thomas Jefferson, smart guy. One of our founding fathers wrote something called the Jeffersonian Bible. I didn't actually write it. What he did is he went through the Holy Bible, and the only thing that he included in his version of the Bible is if the the sentence or the paragraph said, "And Jesus said." The Jeffersonian Bible is made up of nothing but the actual direct quotes of Jesus from the Bible. He said, "I'm here to see Christ, not the rules of man." So if you ever get a chance, go to the library, pick up a copy of the Jeffersonian Bible, and it's a very thin book. That's the Bible according to Jesus, just what he said. I went, wow, that's pretty profound when you strip away all the stuff and you just get to the relationship. Now, when we first started, we started with a quote from Jesus that said, "Seek and ye shall find, ask and it shall be given unto you. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you." When I think about Christ, when I think about Jesus, I think how amazing this is. They say that no person can be all things to all people, and Jesus, I think, is the exception. For just looking at the things as a society, and there's a reason that I wrote this skit the way I did, as a society we're programmed to think these things have importance. Celebrity. Christ is the biggest celebrity there has ever been on this planet, but we don't seem to categorize him the same way. And certainly doesn't behave like many of the celebrities that I've seen. As people in a capitalistic society, we treasure things like people who own stuff. Well, Christ owns more property on this planet than anybody else. We don't see it that way. And also, at the same time that he owns all this property, he owns this house. He walks in the door, I'll hand him the title. Maybe this is yours, I'm just trying to do my best to help out. And I'm sure every other church, synagogue, mosque, sweat lodge around this planet would do the same thing. He owns everything, but he owns nothing at the same time. He's the greatest celebrity of all time. Yet, without the celebrity status, without the ego involved. We look at the gift of prophecy that Christ had and his ability to see the spiritual realm. But he never had a business card saying he was a psychic. One of the greatest healers of all time. But he didn't make his mark on the world through that either. There are folks who are only children who think Christ is an only child, so I can relate to Christ because I'm an only child and he's an only child, so we got something in common. Other folks say, well, I'm not an only child, how can I relate? Well, in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, chapter 13, verses 53 through 58 is written, when Jesus had finished these parables, he moved from there, coming to his hometown, where he began teaching people in their synagogue, and they were amazed. They said, "Where did this man get these wisdom and these miraculous powers?" they asked. "Isn't that the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary? Aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? Aren't all his sisters with us? Where did this man get these things?" And the scripture continues, "But when the folks of your own hometown where you were raised say, 'Isn't that your dad? Isn't that your mom? Aren't these four boys your brothers? And aren't all of your sisters with us too?' tells me from scripture that he was an only child." How can someone be an only child and one of at least 7 kids at the same time? Maybe to Jesus. How can somebody be the largest property holder in the world, because they actually own the whole world, and own nothing at the same time? Have the greatest level of celebrity ever and not be a celebrity? Seek and ye shall find, ask and it shall be given unto you. Through God all things are possible, including the ability to be all things and nothing at the same time. Because that part of Jesus is inside of each one of us. And so because of that, he shares the experiences that we have. When the skit started, Papa, the narrator today, was reading, "Introduce me to your friends and I'll show you who you are." no matter who I think I am, if the people I associate myself most closely with are focused on this, or these type of people, they'll bring out that type of me. At the same time, if I connect most closely with these folks over here, then I'll start to bring out some of that too. It's how we're wired. With one of my best friends since childhood, in fact, we moved around a lot. And so my constant friend, because it was the only friend that moved with me everywhere I went, was this tall hippie guy. And because of that, I hope that it's had an impact on who I am, because this guy, this tall hippie guy, continues to be my best friend. And I hope that that brings something out in me. And I hope that each one of you, through the meditation that Mary had, through your own spiritual beliefs and practices, through your own relationship and understanding with Christ, will strengthen that relationship, will allow you to move stronger into your personal space. Not just your spiritual space, but your daily life space. To have a friend who always brings out the absolute best of you. Always. That's a gift. I say the sincerest form of flattery is imitation. When this is your best friend who is always bringing out the best in you, there develops a need to bring out the best in other folks. Like attracts like. But when your best friend tells you continually that all things are possible, what do you want? Let's do it. That's contagious. It flows out of you. Whether you want it to or not, it just flows right out. When your best friend accepts you, warts and all mistakes, all the things that we have a hard time even forgiving ourselves for, he just gives you a hug and says, "That's okay. That's okay. Let's not do that again. Let's go do something different." It's really difficult to practice judgment of others when you receive an acceptance that's so unconditional. When Jesus showed up, he said, "I am 100% man and I'm 100% God." And at the time, that was an amazingly profound statement. We use the term namaste. The spark of God in me recognizes and honors the spark of God in you. And the spark of God in you, the spark of God in you, the spark of God in you. That we all have a soul, we all have a spark of God inside of us. That we are all 100% spiritual beings having the human experience, and simultaneously human beings having this spiritual experience. To me, I look at that as something that Jesus tried to teach us 2,000 years ago. And maybe we're a little thick, but we're starting to get it. We're starting to see that. When Jesus says, with all the miracles that he did, God didn't pick favorites. You can do what I have done and more. That is not a hierarchy Lord that says, I can do it, but you can't. He says, everything I can do, you can do too. Now because this fellow is my best friend, everything that we do at Connections on Sundays and on Friday nights, people say, "Oh, Scott, but you're the psychic, you're the healer, you're the this, you're the that. I'm not sure I can see energy, I'm not sure I can talk to God, I'm not sure I can connect with the other side." I've got my buddy over here whispering in my ear, everything that I can do, you can do too, Scott. And I echo that, and I say, hey guys, I didn't pick favorites. My buddy told me, anything I can do, you can do too. Show up, let's do it. Let's do it. Well, it starts right here, being told to me, and then me telling it to you, and then you telling it to somebody else. This is the love, this is the empowerment. It is the Christ consciousness. I am not certain if Jesus were to walk in physical form on the planet today that he would be Christian.